Noah and Abigail were the kind of couple people envied. High school sweethearts who had weathered long-distance heartbreak during college, only to reconnect at a mutual friend's wedding and fall even deeper in love. Theirs was a storybook romance. 7 years of marriage, a cozy 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, 2 cars that ran reliably if not luxuriously, and annual vacations that weren't extravagant but always left them with cherished memories. On paper they were living the American dream. Yet beneath the surface cracks were beginning to show. It started subtly, a comment here, a sigh there. Over the past 6 months, Abigail had grown distant. She began spending more time with her sister Mia and a new circle of friends who seemed to live beyond their means. Flashy cars, designer clothes, weekend getaways to places Noah couldn't afford on his salary. Abigail herself had changed. She complained about their starter home, mocked his career as stagnant, and hinted at a lifestyle she clearly felt they should aspire to. At first, Noah dismissed it as a phase, chalking it up to external influences or fleeting dissatisfaction. But deep down he couldn't ignore the growing unease gnawing at him. When February rolled around, bringing with it Abigail's birthday, Noah saw an opportunity to rekindle what he feared might be fading. Birthdays in the Midwest are brutal, cold, snowy, often anticlimactic, but this year he vowed to make hers special. Abigail mentioned plans to visit Mia for a spa day over the weekend, so Noah concocted a plan. He told her he'd be stuck at work, a lie, and arranged to surprise her instead. He booked a fancy dinner reservation weeks in advance, packed her favorite dress and shoes into a bag, and stopped by their favorite bakery to pick up the cake she loved. The journey should have taken 6 hours, but winter storms don't care about human plans. By Thursday night, weather reports warned of blizzard conditions across 3 states, including Noah's entire route. Most sane people would have canceled, but Noah pressed on. Stubborn determination mixed with desperation fueled him. What if Abigail needed this? What if this was the moment to remind her of why they fell in love? The drive turned into a 9-hour nightmare. Snow swirled so thickly that Noah could barely see the taillights of the car ahead. Highway accidents slowed traffic to a crawl. Twice he pulled over just to grab coffee and stay alert. His knuckles whitened against the steering wheel as gusts threatened to push his car off course. Every mile felt like a battle against nature itself. And yet, he kept picturing Abigail's face when she'd walk through the door and see him standing there, cake in hand. Worth it, right? By 4 p.m., Noah finally reached Mia's neighborhood. Exhausted but triumphant, he parked a block away. The snowplows hadn't cleared the streets yet, and trudged through ankle-deep drifts, the cake box clutched tightly in his freezing hands. His jeans were soaked by the time he reached the front door. The house was warm inside, laughter spilling from the kitchen. For a moment, Noah hesitated, savoring the anticipation of his grand entrance. Then he heard his name. Abigail's voice cut through the air like shards of glass. From Noah? Nothing. Radio silence. Mia responded with something Noah didn't catch, but Abigail continued, louder now. Probably still at work in this weather? They'd have sent everyone home. Noah froze, invisible in the entryway. This wasn't playful teasing, it was contempt, sharp and unfiltered. Well, at least he's safely out of the way, Mia quipped. Pause. Then Abigail's words hit him like a freight train. God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance. Mia laughed. Actually laughed. Noah's world tilted. He stood rooted to the spot, the cake box suddenly feeling impossibly heavy in his arms. The man who had driven 9 harrowing hours through a blizzard to celebrate the woman he loved now listened as she mocked him, wished harm upon him, and found humor in his absence. He didn't remember making a conscious decision to leave. All he knew was that moments later, he found himself placing the cake silently on the counter and walking back out into the storm. Back to his car. Back to the cold, empty silence where nothing made sense anymore. The storm outside may have ended, but the one brewing inside me was only beginning. That night, sitting in a motel room that smelled faintly of cigarettes and regret, I stared at my phone like it was a ticking time bomb. 17 missed calls. 38 unread texts. Each notification felt heavier than the last, yet I couldn't bring myself to open them. What would they say? Would Abigail plead innocence? Accuse me of overreacting? Or worse, pretend nothing had happened? None of those options seemed worth the energy it would take to respond. By morning, the number of messages had doubled. Ignoring her wasn't just about punishing her, it was about protecting myself. Every text, every voicemail, carried the potential to unravel what little composure I still clung to. Instead of responding, I did something I should have done years ago. I took control of our finances. First, I went to the bank and transferred half of our joint savings into a new account under my name alone. It wasn't an act of vengeance, it was survival. Then I froze the credit cards we shared and changed every password I could think of, from online accounts to streaming services to Wi-Fi networks. If she wanted access, she'd have to ask for it now. When I returned home 2 days later, our home, I moved methodically as if following instructions from some unseen manual on emotional self-preservation. I packed 3 suitcases with clothes, leaving behind anything Abigail had ever picked out for me. Took my grandmother's watch, the external hard drive containing all our photos, and even the chair I bought when she complained about the squeaky wheels on the old one. These weren't just objects, they were pieces of me I refused to leave behind. Before leaving, I made 3 deliberate changes. Turned the thermostat down to 62 degrees Fahrenheit, Abigail always hated it below 70, unscrewed the light bulb in the refrigerator, and changed the Wi-Fi password to I hope he crashes 2023. Petty? Maybe. But small things matter when you're trying to make someone feel your absence. Back at Theodore's place, a temporary refuge, he didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and said, "Sometimes life kicks you in the teeth." Truer words had never been spoken. Meanwhile, Abigail's attempts to reach me escalated. Calls came from numbers I didn't recognize. Texts ranged from desperate, "Where are you?" to accusatory, "You're being childish." She showed up at my office once, mascara streaked and trembling, claiming she was worried sick. I avoided her, called in sick that day, and spent hours scrolling through our joint accounts instead. That's when I discovered the truth. $17,800 worth of online shopping charges over the past year, all unbeknownst to me, and a secret store credit card with a $3,000 balance. Suddenly, her complaints about needing more money made sense. The realization hit me like another blizzard. How long had this been going on? Was it carelessness or was it something darker, deliberate financial sabotage? Either way, it confirmed what I already suspected. The woman I married no longer existed. This version of Abigail was someone else entirely. Someone who laughed at the thought of me crashing, who spent recklessly while complaining about our lifestyle, who lied without hesitation. Determined to protect myself further, I met with Milton, a financial advisor recommended by a coworker. Over coffee, he helped me draft a formal request for financial separation. Not divorce papers, not yet, but a clear statement that I would no longer be responsible for any debts she incurred moving forward. We delivered it via courier to her workplace. Petty? Perhaps. Effective? Absolutely. But the real battle wasn't fought in banks or offices, it was waged in silence. Abigail began spreading rumors among our friends, painting me as the villain. "It's just a misunderstanding," she told anyone who would listen. "Noah's blowing everything out of proportion." Classic gaslighting tactics designed to make me look unreasonable. Meanwhile, I continued dismantling our shared life piece by piece. One evening, while unpacking boxes at Theodore's, I found an old photo album buried beneath stacks of journals. Flipping through it, I saw snapshots of happier times. Vacations, holidays, lazy Sunday mornings. Each picture felt like a punch to the gut, reminding me of everything we'd lost. Yet strangely there was relief too. The weight of pretending, the constant effort to keep her happy, was gone. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt free. Still, freedom came at a cost. Nights were the hardest. Lying awake, replaying her laughter in my head, wondering how much of our marriage had been real. Had she ever truly loved me? Or was I just convenient? A paycheck, a safety net? The questions haunted me, but they also fueled my resolve. On day 14, I finally drafted the legal separation papers. 6 months to untangle ourselves financially and emotionally before deciding whether reconciliation was possible or desirable. Handing them to Theodore to proofread, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. This wasn't just paperwork, it was closure. A line drawn in the sand between the man I used to be and the man I was becoming. And so, as February faded into March, I prepared for war, not with weapons or anger, but with strategy and self-respect. Whatever happened next, I vowed to face it from a position of strength rather than fear. Because sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. It was a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks into the separation, when Abigail finally found me. Theodore had been out running errands, leaving me alone at his place. I was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through emails while nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, when the doorbell rang. For a moment I froze. Part of me hoped it wasn't her. Another part, a masochistic, hopeful part, wanted to see how far she'd go to find me. I opened the door to find Abigail standing there, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was unwashed, her sweater oversized, and her mascara smudged under red-rimmed eyes. She stared at me as though I might disappear if she blinked. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. Theodore's house felt smaller with her inside. I hesitated but stepped aside, letting her in. She lingered by the doorway, unsure where to sit, until I gestured toward the couch. "You've got 5 minutes," I said, my tone colder than I intended. She didn't waste time. "Noah, please," she began, tears already pooling in her eyes. "I know what I said was horrible, I can't even explain why I said it, but I need you to come home. I miss you. The house feels wrong without you. Everything feels empty." Her words hit me like shards of glass wrapped in silk. They sounded sincere, desperate even, but they couldn't erase the memory of her laughter that night. Still, I let her continue. "I've been trying to reach you for days," she pleaded. "I've been going crazy not knowing where you are or if you're okay. Please just tell me what I have to do to fix this. Whatever it takes, I'll do it." Her performance would have moved me once, 2 weeks ago maybe, but now it only fueled my resolve. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, and studied her face. Was this genuine remorse or another act? Do you remember what you said to Mia? I asked, cutting her off mid-sentence. Her expression shifted instantly, from pleading to panic. What do you mean? You heard me, I said, pulling out my phone. Do you remember your exact words? She hesitated, then shook her head. I don't know, it was a joke, Noah. You weren't supposed to hear it. It didn't mean anything. That's funny, I replied, pressing play on the recording app, because it sure sounded like something to me. The room fell silent except for the sound of her own voice echoing through the speakers. God, I hope he crashes. I could use the insurance. Followed by Mia's laughter. Then Abigail's follow-up, or at least a few months of silence. Abigail's face turned ghostly pale. She reached for my phone, but I pulled it away before she could grab it. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she sank onto the couch, clutching her head in her hands. Noah, no, she whispered. Please no. That's not who I am. I swear I didn't mean it like that. But the damage was done. Seeing her reaction, the shock, the guilt, the raw fear, was both satisfying and devastating. A small part of me wanted to believe her. Maybe she hadn't meant it literally. Maybe stress and wine had clouded her judgment. But the larger part of me couldn't unhear those words or forget the laughter that followed. I don't know who you are anymore, I admitted, my voice quieter now. And I don't know if I can trust you again. She tried to argue, to explain, but I stopped her. Listen, I said firmly. This isn't about punishing you. It's about protecting myself. We're legally separated for 6 months. During that time, I need space to figure out what, if anything, is left to save. She begged, pleaded, promised to change, but I remained firm. By the end of the conversation, I laid out my terms clearly. No reconciliation talks, no couples therapy, no promises. Just 6 months of separation to untangle our lives and reflect. When she finally left, mascara streaked down her face, I sat alone in Theodore's living room, replaying the scene in my mind. Over the next few weeks, subtle changes began to emerge in Abigail's behavior. She started selling her designer clothes and bags online, downsizing her lifestyle to match her income. She even sold her impractical convertible, replacing it with a more affordable sedan. Most surprising, however, was her involvement in a women's accountability group focused on financial literacy and healthy relationships. Then came the letter. One day, I found an envelope waiting for me at my P.O. box. Inside was a handwritten note from Abigail, 10 pages detailing every milestone of our relationship, good and bad. Alongside it was a USB drive containing recordings of her therapy sessions. Listening to one file was enough. The raw honesty in her voice made me realize how deeply she regretted her actions. Still, I couldn't bring myself to forgive her, not yet. Instead, I tucked the letter and USB into a drawer, vowing to revisit them later. For now, I needed clarity. Could we rebuild what we'd lost? Or was it better to let go entirely? As I sat alone in my apartment that night, I realized the hardest part wasn't deciding whether to stay or leave. It was accepting that neither choice guaranteed happiness. It had been 3 months since I last set foot in our house, Abigail's house now. 3 months of silence, separation, and soul-searching. And yet, life refused to slow down for reflection. Abigail had started selling her designer clothes on resale apps, hosting weekly meetings with a group of women focused on financial literacy and healthy relationships. Meanwhile, I'd moved into a small downtown apartment, rented sight unseen after a whirlwind weekend of tours. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, a fresh start, however fragile. Then came the letter. One day, while sorting through mail at my P.O. box, I found an envelope thicker than usual. Inside were 10 handwritten pages detailing every milestone of our relationship. Good, bad, ugly. Alongside it was a USB drive containing recordings of her therapy sessions. She didn't ask for forgiveness directly. Instead, she offered transparency and accountability. Listening to one file was enough. It revealed a side of Abigail I hadn't seen before. Raw vulnerability, genuine remorse, and a desperate desire to change. Still, I couldn't bring myself to forgive her, not yet. Instead, I tucked the letter and USB into a drawer, vowing to revisit them later. For now, clarity remained elusive. Around this time, something shifted in Abigail's demeanor. Her emails became less emotional, more practical. She mentioned taking online courses to improve her earning potential, even hinted at pursuing a career shift entirely. I've realized, she wrote in one email, that I was trying to buy happiness instead of building it. Reading those words felt surreal. Was this the same woman who once mocked me for being content with simplicity? Or had she truly changed? The answer came unexpectedly during another encounter, one far removed from the tension of Theodore's living room or Mia's kitchen. We met at a neutral coffee shop downtown, neutral territory for what promised to be an emotionally charged conversation. This time, Abigail arrived early, dressed simply in jeans, a sweater, and boots. Gone were the flashy accessories, replaced by a canvas tote bag slung casually over her shoulder. When she saw me approach, she smiled faintly, almost nervously. "You look well," she said as we sat down, avoiding direct eye contact. "So do you," I replied honestly. She did, healthier, calmer, like someone who'd finally taken control of their life. After ordering coffees, mine black, hers herbal tea, Abigail slid a sealed envelope across the table. "I thought long and hard about this," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "Whatever happens next, whether we reconcile or go our separate ways, I want us both to feel respected. To feel heard." Curiosity outweighed caution as I opened the envelope. Inside were two sets of terms. One for reconciliation, the other for divorce. Both were meticulously outlined, fair and practical. For reconciliation, she proposed 6 months of couples therapy before cohabitation, full financial transparency, and regular check-ins to evaluate relationship satisfaction. For divorce, she suggested splitting assets based on contribution rather than a strict 50-50 split, buying out my share of the house at market value, and parting ways cleanly without dragging lawyers into unnecessary disputes. I stared at the document, stunned. This wasn't the impulsive, entitled Abigail I'd known. This was someone who had grown up, someone capable of seeing beyond herself. "I know I can't undo the past," she admitted, breaking the silence. "But I hope these terms show that I'm serious about fixing things, or letting them go if that's what's best for both of us." Her honesty hit me harder than expected. Part of me wanted to believe she meant it, that she'd genuinely transformed. Another part, a cautious, guarded part, wondered how much of this was genuine growth versus damage control. That night, sitting alone in my new apartment, I replayed our conversation in my head. Abigail's proposal wasn't just reasonable, it was mature. But maturity alone couldn't rebuild trust. Could I ever look at her again without hearing those damning words, "God, I hope he crashes," echoing in my mind? Yet, as days turned into weeks, I noticed subtle changes in myself too. I no longer flinched when friends asked about Abigail. Conversations about the future, which once filled me with dread, now sparked curiosity instead. Most importantly, I stopped questioning my worth. Whether we reconciled or divorced, I knew I deserved respect, loyalty, and love, qualities I doubted existed between us for years. Meanwhile, Abigail continued evolving. Through her weekly women's group, she helped others navigate similar struggles. Overspending, toxic relationships, self-worth issues. Friends whispered about her transformation, some skeptical, others impressed. Even Mia reached out to apologize, acknowledging her role in fostering Abigail's worst tendencies. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to imagine a world where reconciliation might work. Would therapy bridge the chasm between us? Could we build something stronger from the ashes of our fractured marriage? Or perhaps some wounds ran too deep to heal. As I stood on the balcony of my apartment one evening, watching the city lights shimmer below, I realized something profound. Whichever path I chose, it wouldn't define me. What mattered most was how I approached it, with strength, clarity, and self-respect. The man who left that cake on Mia's counter 3 months ago would have done anything to keep Abigail happy, even at his own expense. The man standing here now understood his value, and his limits. Day 90. 3 months since I heard those words at Mia's kitchen table, words that shattered my trust, my marriage, and the life I thought we had built together. 3 months of silence, separation, reflection, and growth. This afternoon, I found myself standing in front of the same bakery where I'd bought that ill-fated cake. The irony wasn't lost on me. I ordered an identical one, drove it to my new apartment, and placed it on the counter, a quiet nod to how far I'd come since that night. Then I took a photo and texted it to Abigail. The call came almost immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was brief but heartfelt. "I understand what this means. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it. I'm proud of how you've handled all of this, with dignity instead of destruction. I'm sorry. Not because I expect forgiveness, but because I owe you that apology." Her words echoed in my mind long after the message ended. Not begging, not manipulating, just honest. It felt like closure, even though the decision itself still hung in the balance. The next morning, I met with Milton, not the financial advisor this time, but the lawyer. We discussed the next steps for both paths, reconciliation or divorce. Reconciliation would require 6 months of couples therapy before moving back in together, full financial transparency, regular check-ins, and annual discussions about goals and progress. Divorce would mean a clean break, fair division of assets based on contribution rather than a strict 50-50 split, buying out each other's shares of the house, no alimony, minimal legal involvement if possible. Both options felt equally daunting and equally liberating. As I sat in Milton's office, flipping through documents outlining the terms Abigail had proposed, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me, about who I had become during these 3 months. The man who left that cake on Mia's counter 90 days ago would have done anything to keep Abigail happy, even at the cost of his own self-respect. The man sitting here now understood his worth, and his limits. That evening, as I unpacked boxes in my new apartment, I stumbled upon the folder of photos from our 7 years together. Vacations, holidays, random weekday moments. Abigail laughing at something off camera. Abigail sleeping with her mouth slightly open. Abigail in the early days looking at me like I hung the moon. I didn't cry. Instead, I sat there, feeling the weight of everything we'd built and everything we'd lost. It struck me then, relationships aren't defined by their endings, they're defined by what they teach us along the way. Abigail and I had grown apart, yes, but we had also taught each other resilience, accountability, and the importance of self-worth. Maybe some things are meant to break so we can see what we're truly made of. The following week, I signed the lease agreement for my new apartment, a symbolic step toward independence. It wasn't a declaration of divorce, it was a declaration of self-reliance. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my life. Whether I chose to reconcile with Abigail or walk away permanently, I knew I would do so from a place of strength rather than fear, clarity rather than confusion. One night, sitting alone on my second-hand couch with the last slice of cake, I reflected on the journey. The wound Abigail inflicted ran deep. The trust she shattered wouldn't be easily rebuilt. But perhaps healing wasn't about forgetting. Perhaps it was about learning. About recognizing that sometimes, breaking is necessary to rebuild stronger foundations. In the end, I haven't made my final decision yet. And that's okay. What matters most isn't the destination, it's the person you become while trying to get there. So here's my message, not just to Abigail but to anyone reading this. Relationships are fragile, but people are resilient. Sometimes, falling apart is the only way to put yourself back together again. Whether Noah and Abigail find their way back to each other or choose separate paths, they've already grown stronger through this experience. They've learned to value themselves, honor their boundaries and approach love, not from a place of desperation, but from a place of wholeness. And maybe that's the greatest gift of all.